we are going to discuss this motivational needs and processes. So that's part of a human cognitive processes. So I, I said, basically, why humans are different because of their mental cognitive processes are different. So we already discussed three things of it, the perception and attribution, and then we discussed personality and attitudes. And last week we discussed positive psychological capacities. So today we are going to discuss on motivational needs and processes. Uh, my total video lecture is available in YouTube. YouTube, I think Himali has shared with you. So I'm going to do the motivational needs and processes. Uh, so that's so okay. So the agenda for today's discussion is on first to define what is motivation, and then we going to identify what are those primary, general, and secondary needs, and we are going to discuss major theories of work motivation. So basically, these theories are categorized into three ways. One is called content theories, process theories, and contemporary equity and equity theories. So we are going to discuss all these theories. Last 100 years, the research on motivation by social psychologists. So I'm going to present those theories to get a better clarity on what we are discussing. So let's try to first define what is motivation. So motivation is a process that start with a physiological or psychological deficiency. So it can start with a deficiency. Will not happen unless he put the effort. So he will put effort. So he will do all that to steal everything, but he will be persistent. He might get caught. He knows where the cameras are there, and he will try to be persistent and achieve his objective. So this is how people behave. As once they set up their direction of behavior, they put a level of effort, and even when they get obstacles, they try to be persistent. So I think that the thieves, the rogues, in the city, they chosen their behavior. How many times they go to jail, they show still persistence. When they come out, they're going to do the same thing, because they have already chosen a direction, and that's their lifestyle, and they will keep on doing that. So we need to understand, how things work in life. Uh, so the next slide, if you just go to the next slide, you can see motivation is directly or indirectly dominates organizational behavior. So that's very important because when you're working in organization, so it has a dominant this thing in motivation. But a lot of people think when they go for a meeting, they say, if I had a good motivated team, I could have done better. But motivation is not the only thing that keep going in the organization. There are certain other things like personality. So which we discuss a personality, but if you don't select the right person with right personality to perform the job, even if he's highly motivated, he may not be the right personality to do that. Now, for example, a very timid person, he feel that I want to do sales, and but his personality is like not very talkative, very timid. That when you go to the client and he doesn't talk much, so you will not be able to get the information from the customer, and then close the deals. So his personality doesn't fit it into the job, even though he's motivated. So other thing is psychological capacities. We discuss the positivity. So when a person is positive psychology, when he's hope, optimism, resilience, and all that is when it is doing well, and when he's very positive, and he will bring up his all motivational capacities to the job, and he will perform. So So motivation is not the only thing, I mean, I discussed last time in Kashyap, he was just hiding from his brother. I don't see he's highly motivated at this point. He was just hiding from his brother. Anytime he can come and kill him. But the thing is, he had the positive psychology, so he mobilized all these personality, perception, motivation, all rest of it when he wants to get it done. So motivation is not the only thing. And other thing, when it comes to organization, when you're working in organization, the the psychological contract. A psychological contract is, if you join a company and you can't explain why employees leave, because they have a written contract. They were given salaries, they were given this thing, achievements. So most of the time you can't explain why employees leave organization. But in HR, we understand there are two types of contract that employer and employee is having. So the written contract is one contract, appointment letter. The other one is psychological contract. That's unwritten, and it's a give and take contract between an employer and employee. So employee expect certain behaviors for the wages and all that is given to that employee. And same times employee expect for his commitment and his effort, certain level of promotions, incentives, and things like that. So when this is matching, then they work very nicely. So if one part is breached, the employer will fire the employee or the employee will leave the organization. So that's a psychological contract. So when you're doing HR, that is very important to maintain. So the motivation is not the only thing. So when you set the goal set in theory, if you set too high goals, it will not motivate you. The same time, if you set a too low goals, it will also not motivate. So organizational behavior modification, that behavior modification is another area, and the compensation. So if you are not compensated well comparatively to the other industry, then you are not get motivated. So these many things matters. So explain why people are motivated or not, and the motivation is not the only thing. There are so many other things in the organization which drives performance. And sometimes you might find at the last line, if you read it, what drives motivation to engage. So when you're highly motivated, you find that you're totally engaged to the job. And some days, when I see that, when we I mean, you can just observe that, after giving raises or increments in the organization, next day when you go to the office and you looked at everyone's faces, and some are happy, some are not happy, some are actually they have withdrawn their motivation, and they're like a dead piece, so they don't have any energy. So that's where you have to have a proper procedural justice when you're giving raises, because then you can call him and explain how they arrived at that raise. Otherwise they get motivated, they got demotivated. So motivation to perform also, and motivation to quit. So sometimes you will find that they're totally demotivated, and they are physically in the office, but the mentally they are not in the office. They have quit their motivation. I have seen that, sometimes when the employees give resignation, and the last week of their behavior, if you just observed, sometimes, they are in the going mode, so they quit their motivation. But if they have a good loyalty to the company, and then they perform till the last date, and go with a very good note. But some people, you will find it, they already quit the motivation, and then they're like floating there. They're not their motivation is not there. Some organization, they say, okay, we give you paid leave to you, you stay at home, because you might demotivate the rest of the employees also in the organization. These things are very common in organizational workplace. You can observe these things when you are working in the company. So these are natural human behaviors. Now, catch 22 is like a lot of people think motivation is the really the core issue or the main issue, but I would say having motivated people will not solve all the problems. They require ability, they require proper job design and tools at work and leadership. Without that, heavy motivated employees, is not enough adequate. Now let's think about very hypothetical situation. Just assume that you are the CEO of the carrier in Sri Lanka, that's Sri Lankan Airlines. And then you had a very good friend in school that his dream was to become a pilot, but he couldn't do that, in his life, due to some issue, he ended up with a truck driver. Uh, but he got to know that you are the CEO of Sri Lankan Airlines, and you all float a newspaper advertisement recruiting some pilots, and then he called you and said, I'm applying for the pilot post, I mean, you're my buddy friend, can you just influence the organization and select me for that post, okay. So just see, this is a very political organization, you're very powerful and you don't care about that business, you select your friend who has not gone through the pilot training and is a truck driver for that job. So now I would say I give you a formula that motivation is equivalent to ability. No, the performance is equivalent to ability multiplied by motivation and multiplied by uh, 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 design, so that organizational design and leadership. So or tools. Uh, so then I multiplies, if anything is zero, that the whole performance is zero. Now in this case, if you try to explain, performance is equivalent to ability multiplied by motivation and multiplied by tools and the job design. Now in this case, he's highly motivated, but that person doesn't have the ability to fly. So even if you given him a brand new Boeing 747 aircraft, either takeoff or landing would be a disaster because he doesn't have experience to work as a pilot. He get confused when you just put him into the cockpit. Because what is that? Even if you're highly motivated, still you will not be able to perform because you don't have the ability. The same way, I will give you an example now. The incident that which took place in Malaysian aircraft, three aircraft crash. Still, it's a little mystery, what has happened. But some says, that the pilot had an affair with a lady, and then that could be one of the reasons he crashed. I mean he could have committed suicide, but he should not do a mass commit suicide like this, with the whole passengers. But that's very debatable, but let's say I assume that he's a good pilot, but he has the ability, so but his motivation went down, so he want to commit suicide. So in that way, motivation went to zero and the performance is zero. So another example I'll give you, even if you recruit the best pilot and he's highly motivated, but if you given him a broken aircraft, the wrong tools to work, but can he fly? I don't think he can fly. So motivation is really the core issue. For performance, there are other things like this is required. So so now let's look at the individual approaches to motivation. So if you have any questions, you can just raise me, before I just move into the next one. Do we have any questions? So we're gonna request to the okay. So we go into the next one. You can raise any question during the lecture anytime. Individual approaches. So what are those individual approaches? So we we will call it these individual approaches as in the next slide, the primary, general, and secondary needs. Let's look at what is primary motives. Humans' motives are, variously called physiological, biological, or unlearned, or primary. So the primary motives are physiological motives, and they are unlearned. So two criteria must be met in order to be motivation to be classified as primary. It has to be unlearned, physiological based. So what are those? So they are very basic motives. Like hunger. So you don't have to teach them to get hunger. So that's unlearned. Thirst, sleep, avoidance of pain, sex, maternal concerns. All these are primary motives because they are unlearned but physiological base. So that's what we call it, motives. So these motives are there. So you don't have to teach even infants to sleep. They know how to sleep. So when they're tired, they sleep. So these are unlearned. You don't have to train them. So that's called primary motives. Then you have secondary motives. These are called then general and secondary. So general motives are unlearned, but these are not physiological based. Things like curiosity. So we all have a curiosity for what will happen next, and now you are very curious, about COVID-19 situation, so you will look at news, what's happening in Sri Lanka, when are we going to lift this, curfew, and what is the situation in the world. So you are looking at some of these sites, World Health Organization, and the news sites, to get this, because you are very curious, what's going on there, so even humans, animals, all are very curious. So we all have that, but it's not a physiological base. It's unlearned, So we don't have to teach people to be curious, So you have seen that, the cats are, playing with the mother's tail, So they're very curious, when with the tail, So same way, the infants, or small kids, small kids, so they go behind the ants to figure it out where they are going, so they're very curious, so this you don't have to teach them, it's unlearned. And people have that ability to manipulate, so they manipulate everything for their own advantage, even when there are two kids, who had a small fight, when the parents ask who started this, and they manipulate the whole story, and it's very difficult to figure it out, the where it has originated, who started this, then you get this affection motive, you need more caring, so people need to be care about you, so you don't want to live isolatedly, you need to live with people, and then you get these secondary motives. I mean, these secondary motives, the only difference is closely tied to learning, so it's not unlearned. The power motive. So if you want to get power in the organization, yeah, you will work out strategies to get power. So it's closely tied up with learning, achievement motive. So achievement will not happen without learning, so you know how to achieve that, what I have to do next, what is next, so you plan out, you have program, and then you achieve it, so security motives also doesn't come as it is, you have to learn, so you know how to be more secure, achieve job security, and various things, and the status motive also related to learning, to get a better status, in the organization. So these are all, you work out strategies, how to get the next promotion and the status. So these are like all type. So then, there are two types of motives: intrinsic versus extrinsic versus motives. So intrinsic means these internally generated, the behavior of his own sake, and extrinsic is based on the acquisition of material or social reward. So let me give you an example. There's a lady, maybe 1 year back or 1.5 years back. She's climbed, a Sri Lankan lady. She climbed Mount Everest. So I mean, if you just ask her, what is your feeling, being the first Sri Lankan lady, who climbed Mount Everest, I mean, that gives an enormous amount of intrinsic motivation. I mean, that's a world record. I mean, that's a record that no one can keep it in Sri Lanka because she's the first lady who climbed Mount Everest. And you have this record, the first Sri Lankan who climbed Mount Everest. So that's gives her an enormous amount of intrinsic motivation. So if during that time I have seen that the president, ex-president Maithripala Sirisena called her for a office and then taken a photograph, and then like anybody, like even Sajid Premdas might, I mean, I don't know whether might have given a house, or let's say if he has given a house. So that's the extrinsic motivation. It's a social reward. But what is more important is the psychological motivation, internally generated one. But I'm not saying that external rewards or extrinsic rewards are important. So when you are working in organization, you just look at your job. Does it only motivates you because of extrinsic reward, the salary, incentives, and various things, benefits that you're getting it from the job? Or is it intrinsically motivated? That means you psychologically enjoy the job, so then now what is the advantage? So when you're selecting people, and after we select the people also, we will look at whether they are really enjoying the job, so you create a climate that they should enjoy, so your subordinates, give them the necessary training, and have fun with them, and then guide them, and give them a motivation, give them a confidence to perform. And if you see that it is their passion, then they are intrinsically motivated. I mean, they will perform and they automatically get extrinsic motivation without any problem. um, now now why we in interviews also trying to understand, is it his passion of doing this job? If a person selected with that passion, when they are intrinsically motivated, the beauty is you can reduce your supervision. You don't have to supervise people, because they will love to do that job, and they perform that, um, and sometimes you have seen in the traffic police in the road, I mean, they are very active in the junction, the guys, he create a character, and he really loves that, doing traffic police, but if you identify a person from the school time, you put them in like prefects, to do the traffic in the morning in the school, the people cross the roads, and if they really enjoy that job, so they will perform very well, because it's intrinsically motivation. I mean, they used to come to school at 6:30 a.m., to do that, and they're highly motivated to perform that job, so they really enjoyed it. The beauty is intrinsically motivated is you can reduce the supervision. Now think about a situation. I run a company in Himalaya area, that's in Nepal side, to help the people who climb Mount Everest, and then I give them a GPS unit and a satellite phone, so that I said I will do the rescue in case if you need something. Uh, so you call us, or if you're not moving from my screen, I can see that from the GPS coordination that you're not moving. So probably I will call you and check whether you're not moving, and if you don't move for more than a day, please inform. Otherwise, I'm more than 12 hours, I will send a rescue team to rescue you. So I don't have helicopters to rescue you, but I have a rescue team. So they climb up to the Mount Everest, and save you. um, so I run a support services company in Himalaya area, in Nepal, the people to support on climbing Mount Everest. Probably you can charge for that service, giving the phones and the satellite devices. So, but for the rescue job, I need to hire people to do that. Now, I mean, to climb in Mount Everest and rescue them. If I ask you, any of you all, do you like it? To take this job. I don't think many of you all don't like that job. Um, but let's say I have a friend. I had a friend whose hobby was to climb mountains. So every week he climbed Pidrutalagala and all these mountains in the country. He met me one day and I said, I have a job there climbing Himalaya. He said, I love to do that, but only thing is I haven't climbed, these type of snow mountains. Yeah, but anyway, I enjoy this. So he just joined. Um, so he performed well because whenever there is a rescue requirement, every day he's asking me, is there any requirement, because he's ready to climb Mount Everest. But if I select a guy who doesn't have intrinsic motivation, he try to hide from that, this thing. So for him it's a headache. So what happened if I send a person who is not intrinsically motivated? Behind him I have to send the supervisor also to make sure that he does it. Otherwise he just go halfway and just say, we can't go beyond that. A lot of snowballs are coming, and very difficult to climb from beyond that. So we came back. So now you see that the importance of intrinsic motivation and the supervision. So let me just explain, and now we'll look at some of the individual theories of work motivation. These are initial theories. One of the social psychologists, McLaren, introduced these need theories. So he said, need for achievement. So every human being has a need for achievement. So they want to be issues of excellence. They want to compete. They want challenging goal. They want to overcome the difficulties. So everyone has this need for achievement, but it can be low or high, but they have the need for achievement. They don't want to just live. And McLaren say need for power. So people has a need for power, and you want to make an impact on others, influence others, change the people or event, and make a difference in life. Now, very interesting research done by University of Texas, US, and in this research they found out, people who has low need for power die prematurely. So people with high need for power little live longer. Now you might ask, okay, so if you want to live a little longer, you need to have a need of power. Yes, I don't know whether this can be generalized, because this is a research done by University of Texas. But you can see obviously these politicians also, if you do a little research and find out, I mean they little live long, when they have power. But the most of the politician, I said, the funeral notices coming in when they are in opposition, not when they are not in power. So the people who has power, there is a reason for live, because you can control others. It makes meaning to your life. But if you are getting controlled by others, there is no reason for live. So that may be the reason. And need for affiliation. So we all need very warm, close, intimate relationship with other people. So McLaren say we all have a need for affiliation, but you might not really bother about this because you have anyway many affiliation. But you just see your grandmother or grandfather, they are waiting for you when you go there. They want to have a chat with you, chit chat with you, because they are really waiting for somebody to have a very warm, close, intimate relationship with them. And they have a very high need of affiliation. So we all have that. So now we have studied these little individual theories of work motivation, the McLaren, but that doesn't explain, the work motivation. So now I'm going to show you some of these work motivational approach, from psychology to organizational behavior. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it in these theories, but before I break it into these theories, I'll explain you that the work motivation, the entire approaches evolved over last 100 years. The 1900, the scientific management, introduced by Henry Frederick Taylor. but that doesn't talk about much of motivation. But he said, the people are motivated by money, and the people are motivated by money. So he said, improve the efficiency of the factory and pay them more. So that was the theory in scientific management. But things were not like that. So you can see Abraham Maslow's introduced the hierarchy of needs, and Herzberg introduced motivation and hygiene factors. Elderberg introduced ERG needs, and then parallel you can see Maslow's to Victor Room's valence expectancy theory, and then Porter's and Lowell's theory, and then on the other side you can see Adams equity theory. So these theories were brought up by after studying the behaviors of humans by Maslow, Herzberg, rooms, Victor Rooms, and Adams, and various time during the last 100 years. So in this one, you can see these theories evolved in this timeline, but they were categorized into three: the content theories, process theories, and contemporary theories. So if you just go to the previous slide, you can see why we categorize this way, because the content theories explain why human needs change with time, and the process theory, those set of theories explain the process set of Porter's, Lowell's theory, Victor Room's theory, all that attempt to explain the mechanism by which human needs change. So the content theories explain human needs to change with time. The process theories explain the mechanism, whereas the contemporary theories explain the intergroup bias in social environment. So sometimes you are happy as far as you don't know what others are getting. So the contemporary theory says, moment you know what others are getting, you're not happy. So that's explained by Adams equity inequity theory, Adams equity justice theory. So let's look at one by the few of these theories. We're not going to look at all the theories during this time, but we are going to look at very important theories, some of the theories. So content theories of work motivation. So the content theories will explain the motivation with time. So there are two famous theories I'm going to explain you. One is Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the Herzberg two-factor theory. So before I come back to the Herzberg two-factor theory, I will explain to you the Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So Abraham Maslow's, did a research for 40,000 people, and then he identified the people has these five hierarchies of needs. The first one is physiological need. So moment they satisfy the physiological needs, then they no longer be happy with physiological needs. So they go for safety needs, love needs, esteem needs, and self-actualization. So if you really looked at in the next slide, explain what are the physiological needs. These are basic needs. So you're looking at food, water, shelter, and pay. So once you satisfy that, if you have a job, then you get the food, you get the water, you get the shelter, you can build a house, you get a pay, and that's a basic needs. So moment you satisfy with, I mean, if you don't have these needs, you're going for that needs. But moment you satisfied with that needs, I mean, you're not going to satisfy. You're going to go for next level. The security needs, the seniority plans, union. You ask for a do I have health insurance? Your pension, or how what is my security after retirement? Is it a EPF, ETF, or pension, or whatever? So these are security needs comes up. So moment you have that also, yeah, that will not satisfy a person. He goes to the next level for the social need. So he just get it into formal and informal work groups and or teams. You go as a trips as a team, and then you join sometimes clubs like Lions Club, Rotaries, SSC, and then with the friends you spend time because you now has a social need. So once you have satisfied that also, that doesn't end there, but it goes to the esteem needs. You need better titles, and the employees say, I want promotions, better titles, status symbols, and then you try to maintain your status. and then the promotions, and you'll have a private bankers. So you will have it, So the people who goes to the top in the organizations will reach this esteem needs. And are they happy? No, they will not be happy. They go for that next level for the self actualization. The self actualization is the ultimate thing. When they have many vehicles, many houses, all these in luxuries in their life, they still realize, you still can eat 3 times per day. What is the life? So the life is not that. So that they will go and spend their money for charities, various things. Now you see that the Bill Gates has totally retired from Microsoft, and he's running his charitable organization, and he's doing a lot of work in Africa, and totally devoted for charity. So then they realize after some time, that's not the life, and we should. I mean, the money will, and all these titles, designations, all this doesn't give you real happiness. So then they go and do these things, like people go like that. You have seen that Lalit Kotala at the latter part of his life. Um, he spent quite a lot of time with charity work, various things. But the interesting thing is, Abraham Maslow says, people will not go up; they will go up and down in this hierarchy. Now, if you take the case of Lalit Kotalawala, and then next time, he went to jail also. And then when you go to jail, and then you are looking at the basic needs. In that situation, you are dependent about the jailers, whether they will provide you food or not. So people go up and down in this ladder. Now I can give you an example. There was a person, hotel called Milton Hotel, I think Mathur area, and due to the tsunami, it's washed away with and then he probably at the level of esteem needs or a social needs level satisfied, but he lost his family and the entire hotel, and then he was in a tsunami camp. So when he was in a tsunami camp, he's now looking at the basic needs, but he bounced back and he rebuilt the hotel. Now he's doing well. So people go up and down in this ladder. And the Abraham Maslow say, why we all can't reach this self-actualization. The one, the because of the due to the obstacles that set it in your life, will not sometimes will not be able to reach there. So education is one of the things which is very important to reach to the top. Uh, um, so people go up and down, but again, this model will not be able to explain everything, because Abraham Maslow say you will not sacrifice any of the bottom needs and going up. So you satisfy bottom needs in the hierarchy and go up. Never sacrifice that. I mean, you won't go for security without food or basic needs. You won't go to self actualization without the below four. uh, uh, so, uh, so if you try to explain the suicide bombers' behavior using this hierarchy of work motivation, what was the motivation of a suicide bomber to commit suicide? You might say it's a self-actualization, life after death. They've been brainwashed by the leaders that you're sacrificing yourself for, betterment and you know, in your life. Uh, but this you heard various stories, even the last Pasco bomb. What was the self actualization that these people who committed suicide will get it after life. But the question is, they get it after life, but they lose everything in this life. The life into pieces, the body into pieces. Yeah. So in that way, it's a little questionable, how to explain this thing. What was their motivation? And maybe if you just explain that it's life after death, yeah. So then you can explain, but during the life, you're not achieving it, anything. Okay. So now let's look at the motivation here. Herzberg two-factor theory of work motivation. So the Herzberg has brought up. So his theory has two factors. One is motivation factors, and the other one is hygiene factors. She said motivation factors will increase job satisfaction. So achievement recognition, work itself, responsibility, advancement, growth, salary, all are motivational factors which motivates you to work. So when you're getting more responsibility, it motivates. When you get promotions, it motivates. When you recognize for your achievement, it motivates. So growth also motivates. But there are hygiene factors. I mean, if that is good, it is better, but otherwise it increases the job dissatisfaction, like company policy and administration. Sometimes, very centralized structure that you need to get too many levels of approvals, maybe 6 levels of approvals when you want to do a small thing. So that will, bring a little bit of a job dissatisfaction. But you enjoy the work, work itself, but so the motivation is high. But but if the company policy is good, this avoid job dissatisfaction. So sometimes supervisors are bad, but the work is good, so you are motivated, but hygiene factors are bad, so working condition is bad. Now think about a situation, the person who is working for Abans for in a garbage truck. So the working conditions are pretty bad. Therefore, hygiene factors are bad. But if I mean, you can still keep that man motivated, so that brings job dissatisfaction. But you can keep them motivated. Why these people are working? Because either they are paid well, or they are given a short work hours, so that means morning hours only they work, so that after that they can go and do anything, so that so there are ways. Even the hygiene factors are bad, still you can keep people motivated. People who are working for backwaters in the canals, still you can keep them motivated in various ways. So the mining, the people who does mining, so they, in the daytime they are just 1 or 2 kilometers down the ground, the planet Earth, the ground level, less oxygen, working conditions are pretty bad, but they still motivated, because when they come in the night, come up in the night, and they can have parties, barbecues, and all that, and keep that work people motivated. And you can see that, so you go to a building construction sites. um, when you go to the building construction sites, you can see the daytime they're working very hard with the hot sun, and in the afternoon they have some partying, they're singing songs, and various things they will do it. Basically they do it, so you can keep the motivation going, even if the hygiene factors are bad, still you can keep the people motivated, but if you have the good hygiene factors. Now let's say a lady who is working for a five-star hotel, in the reception, nicely dressed up, and the working conditions are very, very good. But even if the motivational factors are a little lesser, but he or she will enjoy the work because the hygiene factors are good. So you can balance it out, the work motivation and the hygiene factors. So I had an office assistant in my previous company, very good as work assistant. He said, I want to resign from the company, and then I asked him, where are you going? So he said, so I'm going to Adel. And then I asked, why you have decided to take that job. Are you getting paid very well, better than here? And then he said, no, the pay is not this thing, the pay is slightly lesser. uh, but I love to work there in that, the atmosphere in Odell. During that was during Otara's time. Because here, I had to just go to customers and, give documents and, various other things. There I can just nicely dressed up and, stay there, and, the Ardell might provide some nice clothes and all that, so he enjoy that climate, working condition there, uh, uh, and because the hygiene factors are good, you know, even if the salary is low, you know, people tend to work, you know, so they're still working because hygiene factors are good. So that's why I just put, I figure it out. The salary, I have put it in both places. There's a question mark whether the salary is a motivator or is it a hygiene factor, you know. So this is a little bit of a question for the social psychologist, you know, because people go and work for a places beautiful, nice hygiene factors, even with less salaries, because the hygiene factors are good. But if you have to go and work for, like, you know, people who work for big towers doing some civil work with, you know, bells put it in, you know, they can fall down at any time. The hygiene factors are pretty bad. And but still people are motivated, and I have seen some people in the organizations, you know, the organization management is useless, and then the supervision is pretty bad, and the culture in the organization is very untrusting culture, and they hate to work in such organization, but they're working because they are more, their salaries are good. There are a lot of other benefits, you know. I call, I sometimes discuss with them, and they say, you know, hygiene factors are pretty bad. It's a very untrusting culture. You can't trust anybody in the company. So moment I come out from office at 6:30 to home, I feel like fever, you know, because too much of stress, pressure. But still, I continue to work because I get paid very well, and you know, I get a good responsibility. You know, I probably see good advancement in the company. So I think, so this is more appropriate for a work motivation. So to keep going, people motivated. Uh, the situation is, when they are highly motivated, when the motivation factors are good, when the hygiene factors are also pretty good, they are highly motivated and the few complaints. When the hygiene factors are good, motivation factors are low, low motivation, but still few complaints. But when the both are low, you get low motivation, many complaints. That at that point, maybe people might leave the organization. So we have studied, you know, Herzberg two-factor theory and the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So now let's get it into the process theories of work motivation. The process theories explain. So after that, I'll give you a small break. If you have any questions, you can just raise and ask questions. Whatever we discuss, is it clear, or you have any more questions? Ravi, are you okay? You have any questions?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. So anyone has any questions, you can ask, you know, before we continue on this lecture. So now you see that, you know, the out of these two theories, the Maslow's theory and Herzberg two-factor theory, when you explain the work motivation, I think Herzberg two-factor theory is, I mean, very much appropriate for a work motivation. But Maslow's theory also you should not, you know, underestimate, because I mean, a lot of problems are there in, you know, sometimes you can see that when you just see some of the senior vice presidents, when they address you in the company, they say, okay, people are not motivated with money, they are motivated with the recognition. Because when you reach to the top, you are no longer motivated with money because you have enough money. But then at that stage, you know, you are at esteem stage, you know, the higher levels of work, the motivational on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Then what will happen is, you think others also like that, you know, so you make a mistake. You said, you know, the people don't want money, they want recognition. So money, recognition has its own place. Money matters, you know. So there's no point of doing recognition with empty pocket, you know. Even the Nobel Prize comes with a lot of money, you know. So it's $1 million, you get it with the Nobel Prize. So I think a lot more time you can see some people, they make statements, they forgot that they are past, when they were young, you know, what made them to go. So this is where the big problem, we make mistakes in organization. We don't understand our employees better, what they really want, and we don't address that point, So in our organization, we try to understand, we talk to each and individuals and find out where they wanted to see themselves genuinely, what are their problems, what do they want, some of them, they said, we spent quite a lot of time on studies, we did degrees and then coming out as a software engineers from University of Colombo, and our colleagues has gone up in different levels. Now we have to get married and we have to build houses. We have these needs. So if organization is not aligned to their needs, and if you don't give the leadership at that level, then you are in a real trouble, because you can't retain them because they have their needs. So they'll work for a couple of years. Then they will go to some other countries like Australia or some other place. Then they probably can earn much more better. So that's those things are not a surprise to you. It should not be a surprise to you in your subordinates when you're managing it. You should understand what they really want, and and whether we can provide that what they need, or how long we can provide that, and where we are going to plan it out, because it has to be win-win for both of them, organization as well as employees. And then you can plan out your company, how to continuously run your business. I think today you will have a much more bigger challenge with this COVID-19. The biggest problem is we never knows. Even yesterday, I think 9 patients has again reported 9 cases. Um, we find it very difficult to plan, even what would happen, even can we relax these things after end of this month, or all that depends on many other factors. So I think all are in a little bit of a situation that the organizations are in different discussions. So countries in the different discussion, and even that this is a world epidemic, so that even if we resolve in our country, still we will not be able to open the airports. So that entire tourism industry, the hotel industries, all that will be badly impacted with this situation. So now let's look at the process theories. The content theories explain the work motivation with time. The process theories explain the mechanism. The first one I'm going to explain is the Victor Room's expectancy theory of motivation. In that, these key constructs are valence, instrumentality, and expectancy. So I would say the motivation is a multiplications of uh, V, I, and E. So V multiplied by I and multiplied by E. So if any of these is zero, your work motivation is zero. So valence is value or importance placed on a particular reward. So people are motivated based on the value or importance placed on the reward. And instrumentality means belief that the performance is related to. So if you perform that, you know that you will get the reward. The expectancy means believe that the effort leads to reward. So they are that you believe that if I put an effort, I can achieve this. Uh, now just look at, there is a cycle race for 50 kilometers, uh, uh, organized by a party, and they advertise you, and then you are a cyclist. You want to participate for that relay, that the cycle rally, the long distance 550 miles one. And then you looked at the advertisement and look at what is the first prize. And the first prize is a bicycle tire, and the second prize is a tube, and the third prize is that small valve that you get it with the cycle, a tube. I mean, do you go for to participate for that, cycling race? I don't think, because the first prize is a tire, what you're getting it. So the valence, the value or importance placed on the particular reward is low. So in that situation is you're not motivated, so that you don't move with your cycle to that race, because V is zero. So any of this is zero means, you're not motivated. Now let's say, think about that situation. Okay, they said in the advertisement, the first prize is a BMW car, the second prize is another Volvo car, or a Volkswagen car, and the third prize is a motorcycle, and that makes you a little bit motivated, so that the valence is high. But this was organized by the Sakwiti. Now this advertisement is put by Sakwiti, and the Sakwiti, he was in jail, he came back, and then you check whether what happened the last time. Last time also he organized a race, but for the winners, he just put up a nice picture, that there is in the paper, the, like, you get this, what you call, board, that with the BMW car and the key, but he never got the car, so the winner didn't get the car. So that you don't trust these fellows, and you don't trust, because you don't believe that the performance is related to reward. So you are instrumentally zero, because you don't trust these organizers who's doing that. So this happens sometimes in the organization. The reward the managers will discuss with you is pretty nice, but you know that the manager is useless. He can't make such decisions, when it comes to the reward. So end of the year he said, my boss didn't approve me, all that stories, because he doesn't have that authority or power to give rewards. So when I is zero, you are getting into motivation problem. You will not get engaged in, with motivation to perform the job. But now let's look at the situation that the reward is pretty good. The BMW car is the first prize. Instrumentally is good. This was organized by one of the leading banks in Sri Lanka, maybe Sampath Bank, and that you trust them, and they'll give the reward when you just win it. But you have never ride, a cycle, you don't believe that, that will lead to performance, so how can you just, if you're not ride a cycle, you can't go for this race and, win the race and get the BMW. So your expectancy is slow, very small, it's zero. So in such situation, you're not motivated. You will not move to the race, so these three factors are very important for work motivation. So if you are just encouraging or trying to motivate people, these three has to be high: surveillance, instrumentality, and experience. So the people should believe that they should perform and achieve the numbers. So this first they look at the reward. What reward do I value? Then they look at, what is the performance? What reward will I get it when the job is done? Well done. So what is the effort that you have to put? If I work hard, will I get the job done? So when you had the answers to these three, you engage with work motivation, and then you perform and get the reward. So that's the room's expectancy theory. And I said, this will go us into a problem, motivational problem, and there are three causes. If anything is zero, this will lead to a problem, because belief that effort will not result in a performance, belief that the performance will not result in a reward, or the value a person places on a preference a person has for a certain reward is zero. So when any of these things are zero, you are not motivated to perform. So this is the same slide, the same thing it will explain, putting expectancy theory together. So another process theory is Porter's Lowers motivational model. After this, we'll have a small break. Porter-Lower's motivational model it's a little bit of extension of Victor Room's motivational model. You can see these boxes, nice boxes. I mean, to put people to perform that stage 6, they have to put effort. So you don't put an effort if you don't have the idea about the value of the reward and the pursuit effort reward probability. So you first look at what is the value of the reward. Do I really value for that reward? what is the reward probability? If I put an effort, will I get that effort? So just imagine, now there's another lady who wants to climb Mount Everest, and she's also equally good, but she will put the effort. She will look at what is my reward. I'm not going to be the number one in Sri Lanka, but I'm going to be the second lady who just climbed Mount Everest. But still it's good. It's nice. To have that reward. So if that is very valuable, you put a what you will also see what is pursued effort reward probability. If I put a effort, will I be able to climb Mount Everest? What was my probability? What are the things I have practiced? Have you ever been in a mountain like that, a tall mountain, and have you at least climbed half of the mountain before earlier, to put that effort? So if you're sure that you can do it, then you put effort. And then the effort, even if you put effort, it doesn't guarantee that the performance. So this is where the problem comes up. You work hard, you think you put effort, but you don't perform. So due to these two reasons, either you don't have the abilities and right traits. So if anyone who put effort to climb Mount Everest, he's never seen a mountain like with lot of snow. He only climbed Pidurutalagal and places like that. So he doesn't know that, he doesn't have the right ability to climb such mountains. So he doesn't have the ability. So then even if you put the effort, you will not perform. So you have to practice. You have to practice climbing smaller mountains initially, and then you build the ability. But even if you have the ability, if you don't have a role perception, you will not perform. So in this matter, you just go to the YouTube and watch, people who climb in Mount Everest, and try to understand what is the role that you're going to play. And they said, in the halfway, sometimes you get the snowballs coming, and difficult part. And when you reach the top, the oxygen levels are very low, and then you have to carry oxygen cylinders, because at that height, oxygen layer is very very less, so that your lungs can't breathe. So you will die, if you don't carry the oxygen. So to the last part, you can't climb. So you have to have a role perception. On the way back to the climbing in the Mount Everest, you might see the dead bodies and things like that. You have to expect all that. You have to know the role. So you should not get scared, because you know what the role that you have to perform. So when you're working in organization also, if you don't know what is your role, if you don't have a proper role perception, and if you don't have a ability, even if you put effort, you will not perform. So that the performance depends on not only effort, abilities, and role perception. So once you perform, what will happen? It brings you happiness. Happiness rewards comes from intrinsic reward. That's a psychological reward. You really enjoy. Okay, I am capable of climbing Mount Everest. So that's a feeling that, which carries a confident, motivation. So extrinsic reward is if any company or any party has, appreciate that and paid you some money or give some gift or something like that, is external reward. So that brings satisfaction. So when you're working in the organization, if you perform, it brings satisfaction because it gives intrinsic reward and extrinsic reward. And then this satisfaction, so when you're getting that, also you check with the, it is a perceived equitable reward. So what was you pursued, and then what you have got it. So in organizations, sometimes they perform, they do beautiful things, and they make new products, new areas of business. The management will just say appreciate, they call them for a meeting and appreciate. But he was expecting something beyond that. So his perceived equitable reward was very high. So then he will not get satisfied. So when you're satisfied, what will happen is it again will add the value of the reward, and then you put a effort. So the value of the reward. So performance leads to satisfaction. Dua, asini, asini. Anda balana kau dah mungkin. So So efforts leads to performance, and the performance lead to satisfaction. So performance leads to satisfaction. So not satisfaction lead to performance. You have to understand, even if you make a very satisfied employees, they will not perform. So when they perform, you have to satisfy them. So it goes this way. So you understood the Porter's Lowes model. So before we go to the contemporary theories of work motivation, I just want to know whether you have any questions. Do you have any questions? Ravi?
No, sir.
No, no. Deshani, you don't have any questions?
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Peter?
I'm fine, sir. It's
You're fine, no?
okay.
Shall we have a small 15 minutes break?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So it's now 10:25. So we'll meet up at 10:40.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll have a small break and then we'll discuss this.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Okay, I hope you are connected.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we can start the lecture. So we stop at contemporary theories of work motivation. We already discussed content theories and process theories of work motivation. So contemporary theories of work motivation, let me start with Adam's theory of inequity. So what does it mean by theory of inequity? What do you mean by inequity? Inequity is a situation in which a person perceived he or she is receiving less than what he or she is giving, or giving less than receiving. So inequity can be positive or negative. So negative means whatever he or she is giving, you know, whatever she or she is receiving is less than what others are getting. Positive means what you are getting is more than what others are getting. So, but both situation we call it there is a inequity exist. So Adam's inequity theory says, people tend to compare with others. So moment they find that, when you compare with another person, your outcome to input ratio is same like your outcome to the comparison person's outcome to input ratio, then we call it, we have a equity. But if you find that your ratio, your outcome, you're giving much more output compared to your input, the salaries or incentives that you're getting it, is lesser than what others are getting as their outcome, their rewards, compared to their inputs. So then you call it, you're in a negative inequity. So if you are getting more than what others are getting on this ratio, so not what others are getting, it is a outcome to input ratio. And then you call it, when you're getting more, you are in a positive inequity. So you find that, most of the time when you are at negative inequity, a moment you see what others are getting more than, the similar positions, similar categories, others are getting much more than what you are getting, then you get demotivated because you feel that, you're getting less. But as far as you don't know about what others are getting, then you're okay. But moment you get to know that, you are demotivated. So that's the reason sometimes is you keep salaries private, confidential. Let's not open out to the other people. But there should be some justice. So when you are getting negative inequity, what are the strategies for resolution of inequity? Uh, Alter the person's outcome, alter the person's input, alter the comparison other person's outcome and comparison person's input, and these are some of the strategies. Now let's take for example a very simple thing like outcome to input ratio. Think about a situation where you think about there is a telephone operator or a lady is there, and she is answering to this number of calls per day, and because of the call volume, you brought up a new young lady, to handle the telephone and the reception. So now the young lady who does about some calls, and she realized that the next to her, the other lady, she's getting double the salaries that what she's getting, but she's doing the similar number of call, inputs, giving it, so she just runs to the manager and said, oh, I'm demotivated because I don't have the equity. I'm getting my outcome is lesser. But then what are the strategies that you can adopt it? So what are the strategies? Alter the person's outcome. Alter the person's outcome means uh, you can increase the salary. So that's the one thing, but you can't do it because she's new and whatever it is, or you can alter the person's input. You will say, okay, you can answer less number of calls. We will give some more calls to the senior person because she's getting more. So you can do that way, or you can go and do the alter the comparisons others, or the second one is comparison person's input, so that you can reduce, you can have more calls to the her. Give me 1 minute.
Okay, sir.
නාලක සර් කොහෙ ගිහිල්ලාද?
සර්ට විනාඩියක් කිව්වා මම කවුරුද
හරි හරි.
මට නද call එකක්
සර් පොඩ්ඩක් එළියට යනවා කියලා කියා. දැන් එයි එනවා කියලා කිව්වා.
හරි මං ආවා right okay. දැන් අද call එකක් ආවා මට මේ මේකින්
හරි හරි සර් හරි.
Okay sir.
right. So people tend to compare with the comparison person. So what will happen is, as alternative strategies, people alter the person's input. So you can go and alter the input of the comparison person and say, you do more calls because the new person is young and he's getting less, and you are experienced, you can do that. And when as a third strategy, you can alter the comparison person's output. So you can go and reduce the salaries of the comparison person, but that's practically not possible to do that. Or you can go and alter the comparison person's input, or you can ask her to take more calls so that the young person will take less number of calls because you are very experienced. So by doing that, you can try to get some equity out of it. Or you can change who you as a comparison. You can say that young person, okay, don't go and compare with the senior telephone operator because she came from the GM's contact, and GM knows him very well, and basically it's a relative of him, and because of that reason, we can't go and compare with that. It came from influence, so that then the young person will understand, okay, I should not compare with that person. Or you can rationalize the inequity. You can say, okay, let's say if you work for another 5-10 years in this company, and then you are also getting raises, and then your salary goes up. In that situation, after 5 years, if another young lady comes and say, she will also complain the same way, say that my what I am getting is lesser than what you are getting it. So then you rationalize it. So you can do all these things, to handle this inequity problem. But anyway, in your organization, your HR may be not very strong. That's the reason a lady who is in the telephone operator is there for more than 10 years at the same position. So there is no succession planning in that company. Or if you can't rationalize all these ways, when there's inequity, the reason for that inequity, then, if you're not convinced, the only option that you left it is to leave the organizational situation. So that's one of these are some of the strategies to overcome the inequity. Now the issue is, some people are equity sensitive. Then they prefer equity ratio equal to that of my comparison per other person. So they wanted same equity, when they compare with another person. Some other people are little generous. That means they are comfortable with even equity ratio less than that of comparison other. Even if you are getting less, still they say, okay, I love this company, I am okay with this culture, so I will tend to work even though there is no equity, you know. Then another category of people, they have entitled mentality. They will never get satisfied even if they are equal on equity. They said, I'm a different person, I need better equity, so I should get better outcome than others. So then this case, it becomes a very, very difficult to satisfy employees when some are with entitled type of a mentality. So equity theory links up with justice, you know. So equity theory involves a perception of distributive justice. Suddenly I got just disconnected. I hope you are connected now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Let me just again share the screen. Okay, so you probably can see the screen. Yeah, okay. So everyone should get what they deserve. There should be a fair pursued fairness in distribution of outcome. Um, so that's the justice, distributive justice. Other method is, you know, to handle this equity is the having a procedural justice. A pursued fairness of the procedure used to arrive at, you know, outcome. Now, let's say if the employee comes and say after giving a raise, I'm not happy with the raise because you know, I didn't get, you know, what others are getting it. But then you call him to office and explain, you know, how we arrive at that raise, and then you can sit with him and say, this is your performance evaluation. We sit down and work out this performance evaluation. So based on the marks that this is the raise you are getting it, you know, why others have got the higher raise because their marks are higher. You know the criteria how we evaluate the performance, and based on that criteria only, people are getting different performance level. So the employee who is not happy with the raise, but he will be happy with the procedure adapted to arrive at the raise, and finally he will be happy because he see at least the organization has a procedural justice when you're giving annual increments and, you know, things like that, you know. So this is how we handle equity theory. You know, when they are not motivated, when the moment they compare with others. So when the organization has distributive justice and procedural justice, we can handle this situation. You know. So just got stuck. Okay, so that's complete that motivational needs and processes lecture. Um, do you have any ideas on any questions on this work motivation? Nalaka, Pavitra.
I have a small question, sir. That in the last part, that inequity, is that there's a different from the favoration or something like that? It's different, no?
Oh, which one? The last part means
Yeah, inequity.
inequity. Now inequity, you know, you can't do favoration, but uh, are you referring to this slide or the previous slide?
Previous one.
Okay, entitled one, this one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one means some people, even they are not happy with when they are getting equal equity. You know, equal equity means when they compare their output to input ratio figure, and then the comparison person input to output to input ratio, when it is equal, then there is equity, no? So there is a balance. So it's but some people are there, they believe, no, I am different, I should get much more better, you know, and that's their mentality, you know. They say, you know, even my outcome to input is equal to that, I'm not happy, I'm a different person, I should get much more better. So it's his perception on what he should get. But even he's not make it equal equity, but sometimes it's tough to satisfy this type of. It's not favoration. This is the personality, you know. So this you get these people. Sometimes you can't make them happy what you're giving it, you know. So in such situation, it's very tough, you know, because they are not you know, they don't want to compare with others, and even if the ratio is good, but they are still not happy. They said, I want to be more, so I want to have a positive equity. I mean, can you remember we discussed on positive equity? So they believe I have to have a higher outcome than my input ratio than the comparison person. So then if everyone thinks that way, how can we resolve this problem of equity? We can't do that. Did that answer to your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, I got it.
Any other questions?
So basically, the content theories says what factors will motivate the person,
Okay.
and then the process theory says the rational process of employee evaluating the job and coming to a motivation.
Yeah, the
What
mechanism.
exactly?
It explain
What
the mechanism.
exactly? Okay, what exactly the contemporary theory says like that?
This last theory set, you know, you're talking
Yes.
about. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So this shows you even that the process mechanism we explain in the process theories, no, like Victor Room's theory
Yes.
and all that, you know. But this theory, last set, will talk to you on this one. If you refer the slide, this one, you know, this slide. Contemporary theories tend to explain intergroup bias in terms of various social psychological motivation. So sometimes an employee is happy as far as he doesn't know about what other salaries, you know. Am I right? You know,
Yeah.
moment you know about what others are getting, he will be not happy, you know. So there is an intergroup bias, you know. As far as you don't know what others are getting, you are happy, you know. But moment you know, then you get demotivated or more highly motivated because you are getting much more better than others, or you are getting lesser than others, you know, then you get demotivated. So this explains there's no mechanism. You know, it's that, you know, you tend to compare people inside the organization, even outside the organization, and then get demotivated or motivated. Did I explain to you your question?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So any other questions we have on work module? Do we have any other questions? So then shall we close for the session then?
Okay, sir.
Yes.
So you can read, I have given you Fred Lutton's textbooks, Organizational Behavior. You can, if you want to further information, you can read that chapter of work motivation.
Okay, sir.
I can't remember exactly what chapter it's. There's a chapter for work motivation. You can read that. And there is probably at the end of the chapter, there is a small case study. They read the case study and try to see whether you can answer the questions, you know. You get apply these theories in this case study.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so do you have any more questions on work motivation?
Not for me, sir.
Okay, shall we close for the day? Probably we'll have another one more lecture during this week. Is it all right?
It's okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah, that's all right.
Are you okay with the weekdays?
It's okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Morning or afternoon is you preferred, you know?
Afternoon, I free.
Afternoon. What time?
3 o'clock.
I can't hear you. What time?
3
3 o'clock?
p.m. Yes.
3 to 6 or something like that?
It's okay.
What about others?
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, okay.
Okay, sir. Fine.
That's fine. No? So I'll ask Himali to schedule another lecture before end of this week, another one, so that we can cover more content and basically I have to just work out assignment also and send it to you. So you didn't get any assignments yet, no? Okay, no assignments. No, we didn't do anything. No, so okay, we have to work out assignment. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
ඉවර කරාද ක්ලාස් එක?
ඉවර කරා ක්ලාස් එක.
හරි
අපි
සර්.
මේ වීක් එකේ තව දවසක් ගම්මු මේ 3ට. හොඳේ?
හරි සර්.
ඒගොල්ලන් කැමති 3ට කරන්න. මට ඊළඟ
හරි.
සෙෂන් එක කර දෙක එතකොට.
මම බලසට කියන්න. හරි. ඕකේ සර්.
Okay, thank you.
ඕකේ.